Well, hello there, humans, hooligans, and earthlings, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and whomever you're lucky enough to be doing it with, thanks for watching. It's time to talk about my Supra. This car continues to be ranked at the top of the list of one of Hollywood's most iconic cars, and is it any wonder? From the first time we see the car on the screen, the car makes an unforgettable impression. Today, you're going to learn how this car came to be, how we built several replicas, and what happened to these cars during the movie and after we were done. If you've done any reading on my website, you'll know that I've been tinkering with cars since around 1980. My first cars included several Datsun 240Zs, some Datsun 510s, and even a few muscle cars, including a 67 Chevelle. By 1993, though, I had a pretty wild Mustang GT. It had road race suspension, a 347 stroker motor, a big Vortec S-trim cog drive supercharger, and big brakes. One day in 1997, I made the mistake of doing a little stoplight challenge with a guy who had a Mark IV Supra. To my surprise, I got gapped. That immediately got me looking at Supras. I looked around for a little while and I found one at a little car dealer out in the boonies. I shelled out $24,000 and I drove it home. The car was a factory twin-turbo Targa roof with a 6-speed, and it was a 1994 model. Within 3 days though, the car was at gritty. It got the basic mods, something we used to call BPU or basic performance upgrades. That list of mods includes injectors, a new front mount intercooler, new piping, and a full Gretty Power Extreme exhaust system. The car made about 450 horsepower in that trim. 2 weeks after I got the car back and went back to Stillen for brakes, some suspension bits, a new front bumper, and side skirts. From there, it went straight to the body shop. The factory white paint was replaced with Mazda RX-7 Competition Yellow Mica. This was a 3-stage candy paint job. The car also received a rod Millen rear wing and 18-inch OZ Mito wheels. At the same time, the car seats went into a upholstery shop for yellow inserts, and a custom yellow roll cage was built. Right after the paint work was done, it went to audio options to get a full sound system. Working with Dwayne Ueda, he came up with a stunning layout that became famous because of its role in the movie. When the stereo was complete, I took some time and did some car shows with the car for about a year. The car did pretty well at shows and won many awards, including the very first Sport Compact Car Ultimate Street Car Challenge, which was a drag race, autocross, and a car show in one day. During this period, I only made a few changes to the car, including the wheels, which were switched to Racing Heart C2s. The biggest change was the turbo setup. With the help of Turbonetics and a fellow by the name of Dave Jusko, we replaced the stock twins with a single T66. Tuning the car required Dave Jusko's expertise and a bunch of electronics from HKS. This included things like an HKS GCC, a VPC, an FCON, and injector pulse monitor, as well as a Gretty Profect B and turbo timer. Before lap tuning was so prevalent, these little electronic band-aids were designed to help cars run big boost but still be drivable. Each box performed a specific function or monitored a specific performance attribute. I was very content with the car and I drove it every day. It was docile on the street, but with 650 horsepower on tap, it was plenty of fun. And the boost came on around 4,000 RPMs, and then like most Supras, it just went right up to the red line. So it was a hoot. Around early 2000, I was at a car show like any other weekend, and I met a fellow by the name of David Martyr, who proclaimed to be working on a movie about tuner cars. They were going to call it Redline. I won't tell the whole story again, but essentially I was invited to Universal. I brought up the car while it was still yellow, gave Rob Cohen a ride. He about shit his pants when the boost came on. He was so excited when I got on the pipe. Getting on the 101 freeway, he was screaming, "Was this the NOS? Is this the NOS? Oh my God, this thing is great. We got to have it." And it became the car that Paul Walker would drive ultimately. The catch was they wanted to make some changes to the car. Chief among their planned changes was a change to the body kit, which I had just installed, and the paint color. I was like, shit, I just spent $8,000 on this paint job. The show must go on, as they say, so my Supra went back to my paint shop for a candy orange facelift. Bomex provided the body kit, APR provided the rear wing, my beautiful Racing Heart C2s were tossed aside and replaced with Racing Heart M5 tuners, and of course Universal added the now famous Nuclear Gladiator graphics, or whatever you want to call them. Of course, with the new paint job, the yellow interior wouldn't work, so the seats and interior bits went back to the upholstery shop for some blue suede. The roll cage, though, was still yellow, but Universal didn't want to be bothered with it. This little detail was even copied when toy companies started selling copies of this car, and that's why the cages are yellow in these toy replicas. By this time, my car had a pretty long list of modifications, so building replicas was not going to be simple. With my car now ready for its on-screen debut, we still had to build the replicas, which was going to be no easy task. This list shows the cars we bought and at what price. As you can see, we actually had 8 Supras. My car was the principal car, aka the Hero 1 car. This is the car that the actors would pull up in or drive off in, that kind of thing. No stunts are done in this car usually. We have a backup to that car. That car is called the Hero 2 car. We had 3 stunt cars, so that we always had a backup on set for an accident, or if we have to refurbish a part or swap out wheels, the sun's going down, whatever the case. We also have something called a buck car, which is typically used for green screen shots or blue screen shots and such. We had an in-process car. This is the car you see in Dom's shop that had no engine, and that's the car that Dom is sitting in the engine bay while talking to Brian about his sister and that kind of thing. This particular car was borrowed from Reese Millen. We also had the burned out Hulk, the one that you see on the tow truck. Of these cars, only my Hero 1 car was a turbo and a manual trans car. Stunt 1, 2, and 3 were automatic non-turbo cars. The Hero 2 and the Buck car were also automatic but naturally aspirated cars. And last but not least, the tow truck car, the red one, of course, was a naturally aspirated automatic car. Since my Hero 1 car now had different wheels, a different body kit, and a different wing, we had to replicate all of those parts on the cars that we would be fully building. That included the TRD hoods, the Racing Heart M5 wheels, the Bomex body kit, the APR wings, and the Greddy mufflers. We didn't put full exhaust systems on all the cars. Another thing worth mentioning, none of the replicas built during the movie had any engine mods. My car was the only car that had engine mods because it made no sense to add engine mods if we weren't going to show the engine on screen. In fact, in this scene where you see the camera pan down a collection of parts laying on the floor, to be honest, most of those parts were leftover parts from my own garage, plus some borrowed bits from Powerhouse Racing and other tuner shops. In fact, one piece is actually a B303 Ford camshaft from my old Mustang. It was just laid out there to be eye candy. None of those parts actually went on any of the engines. Still, the process of building these replicas took weeks, and it was all done at Eddie Paul's garage in El Segundo, California. Of course, the car's big debut on screen was rolling out of Dom's garage. This was shot with both my car and the stunt car, and it was a fitting introduction to how the car would be used in this segment. In the next sequence, you see the Supra pull up to a Ferrari. This is filmed on California's famous Pacific Coast Highway, and this sequence required shutting down the road in 15-minute intervals so we could shoot, then reset and reshoot. If you watch carefully, you can see that the sun changes position, with the ocean being to the west and over the shoulder would be to the east. So as you watch the sun change, you can see that we actually filmed over the course of a whole day. My car was used, though, in a couple of these sequences, and you can see my shiny engine bits peeking through the hood at one point. All of the drivers of the other cars on the road were stunt drivers. To answer the question, yes, my Supra would have smoked the Ferrari. Although the car makes a brief appearance at Race Wars, the next big sequence is going to be the desert hijacking scene. We all remember this part. Brian grabs Mia, jumps into the Supra to head out to the desert in the hopes of stopping Dominic and the crew from getting busted in the middle of the night. The roof rejection was a combination of practical shots and special effects. You could see that Brian only pushes the roof up straight up from the middle, and if you've ever been in a Supra, you know that it takes a wrench to take off the top. Once the Supra slides off into the dirt, Brian blows his cover, and the film moves towards its climax. The production team here covered the car in a light tan powder similar to baby powder for continuity. It had to look like the car just got run off the road. Before long, Brian catches up with Dominic, and Johnny Tran pays a visit, suits up Jesse, and the chase is on. These jump scenes were filmed in Echo Park using a stunt car and some ramps. Each time the car landed, 4 wheels were trashed. This is why we have multiple stunt cars. A Mick-rig Supra was cut in and out for shots where Brian had to do some driving, but the actual slide was done with both Paul Walker and a stunt driver. Creative editing blended the 2 shots together. With Johnny Tran now dead, all that's left is to apprehend Dominic Toretto. The two finally meet up on a stretch of road at Terminal Island in San Pedro, California. Both my car and 2 stunt cars were used. They pull up to the stoplight and a challenge is made. Both drivers are determined to see who's the best driver. So which car would have won? If the Charger that we used in the scene actually had the engine that we showed in the earlier scene, it would have been no contest. The Charger would have smoked the Supra. Of course, this was a stunt Charger, so it didn't have anything close to the real engine. And even though the engine shows to be having a malfunction halfway during the race, no contest. 900 horsepower with sticky tires, it would have smoked the Supra. Even if it was a 400 horsepower crate motor with sticky tires, it probably still would have bested the Supra, given that the Supra was on low-profile street tires, it didn't have a drag race suspension, and it weighed about 3,900 pounds. As the cars jumped the train tracks, they looked to be dead even. We never find out who won because Dom flips his Charger over the front of a semi. One of the two stunt cars had a full roll cage, and if you watch the scene in slow motion, you could actually see the full hoop. We all know the ending. Brian does the right thing, pays off his debt of a 10-second car, hands the keys to Dom, and Dom drives off into the sunset. So what happened to these cars after the movie? Well, for my Hero 1, I hung on to the car for about a year, and then I got a nice offer on it, and I sold the car, and now the car is in the Netherlands, in Europe. The new owner has not changed anything on the car, and it still looks exactly the way I left it. The rest of the cars all suffered different fates. Most of them, including the McRig, the Buck, and Stunt 1, 2, and 3, were all reused in Too Fast, Too Furious. This meant that cars would get new paint jobs, new body kits, new wheels, and new audio-video systems. After that movie, a couple of the cars were sold, including the stunt cars. Some of them have been reconditioned, others are waiting to be reconditioned, and we just don't know where a couple of them are, like the Buck or the McRig. One of the questions that I get asked most often is, do I regret selling the cars? The short answer is no, I don't. While I enjoyed my time with each one of these cars, and I had a lot of fun sharing them with other people, the simple fact of the matter was that no one knew Paul Walker was going to die. No one knew that these cars were going to be super popular again 20 years later. And I didn't want the responsibility of owning what could have been a priceless movie car, including the task of having to take it to a car show every week and to share it with everybody. I have a busy life, I have a family, I have a career, and it's very difficult for me to do that. I know a lot of people say that if they had a movie car, they'd never let it go. I don't think they've thought that through. Imagine driving to a car show one Saturday to share the experience with an owner and some drunk driver rear-ends you in an intersection. How do you replace the parts on these cars which have been discontinued for 15 years or more? So that in and of itself is a deal breaker. The other consideration is that having been to several car shows, there were some people who just didn't respect cars at all. They would try and take parts off of the car, they'd lean on the car and all that sort of thing. And so keeping the maintenance up and keeping the cars clean and in good shape is just a big chore. So it's just not something I wanted to shackle myself to. Had my fun with the cars, had a great time. I'm very happy that they're popular around the world and that they're getting more popular as time goes on. So I've had my fun, and I'm very thankful for that. And just as I'm thankful for you, my YouTube subscribers, and my Instagram followers. So thanks very much for indulging me and letting me tell my stories. I hope you're enjoying the content. Stay tuned for another episode coming up next week, and thank you for your support.